Hi, my name is Sarah Karen, and I am presenting about gender in advertising. And this is going to be a little bit of a little rant style video. I just want to make it seem as authentic and genuine as possible. I don't want there to be any apparent gaps in knowledge between the knowledge, holder and the knowledge, you know, seeker. So I'm trying to make this as authentic as possible. That means like low editing, low use of like very proper, very like overtly formal language. So you can see I will be not shying away from showing my thought process throughout this video, just because I want to make knowledge seem as easy to access and as shareable as possible. And I feel like if one of us is acting too formal, then that knowledge is going to be almost gate kept in a way. So let's get into this. I'm very excited to show what I have learned from my senior level capstone class. I'm an undergraduate currently. All right, let's get into it. So to start off, we will have a table of contents, hello, that will guide us throughout this entire process. So to start, I will introduce myself, who I am, what this is going to look like, and from there, we will move into the theories that will guide us throughout this process. Some of the major theories, one is our media cultivation theory. I will describe what this is, what this looks like, etc. From there, we're going to dive into the impact of this theory and how this theory produces a cyclical effect on our world. Afterwards, we're going to look into the irresponsibility of brands, ear in parentheses, because brands are also held to a responsibility. And from in that section, we're going to look at the female gaze and how the female gaze can empower brands and empower society in turn. Afterwards, using all these theories, we're going to ask the question, well, what do we do now? And the answer to that question is we're going to produce media literacy, and I will describe what that is and what that looks like. And using all of this information, we're going to apply it to some case studies, which is going to be the best part, not to be, dramatic, but. And at the end, I'm going to conclude with some final thoughts and some further implications for research going forward. All right. So in my introduction section, I'm just going to ask, who am I? And of course, I'm going to answer because that's me. I'm going to just talk about the communication studies literature, gender and advertising, and of course, what this video looks like. So who am I? I've kind of already talked about it a little bit, but I'm a communication studies senior. I will be hopefully getting my degree in May in communication studies. I'm an undergraduate and I'm very excited to get to, use my scholarly research to inform and make the world more aware of what's going on in communication studies. As for communication studies literature, this whole project has really been around synthesizing literature from all of the classes I've ever taken, specifically rhetorical theory and rhetoric. Rhetoric has a bunch of definitions, and it basically it can mean a whole lot. And it can mean that what we look at, what we see, what we hear has meanings, and how we find those meanings, how we interpret those meanings is important. And so some of the classes I've taken from are my rhetorical theory class, my health comm class, and my rhetoric and media class, which works perfectly for advertising. So as for gender in advertising, that is the whole topic of today's presentation. And I really want to just investigate stereotypical portrayals of gender and their implications for society. So when we see a stereotypical portrayal of gender, what does that mean when we go about our day and we interact with other people? And of course, this style of video is going to be very, as I kind of mentioned in the first couple of minutes, a little bit of a rant, a little bit of just a very unedited, authentic style of video to meet my target audience right where I should meet them. And my target audience, of course, is adults. And I will get into that a little bit, but pretty much my target audience is going to be people like you, hopefully. A lot of college students, a lot of young adults, but mostly adults of any age, people who watch YouTube, who are interested in learning about literature, learning about how our world is impacted by subtle influences that we might not have picked up before. So, with that in mind, let's move on to the theories. Our first theory, of course, is gonna be this media cultivation theory. So this may look a little daunting, but I'm gonna what is the word called? Shorten, paraphrase, make it smaller. Shorten and abbreviate. Wow, we got there. Abbreviate the media cultivation process into 3 easy steps for you. So the first step, we view media repetitively. This happens all the time. We see ads everywhere. We see ads when we're driving. We see ads when we're going to on our phone. We're going through Instagram. We see ads literally everywhere. Hard to escape. Especially in America, which is why I'm mostly speaking to an American audience. I'm specifically looking at American advertisements and advertisements that target to American audiences because the impact of that shifts to American society. And I'm looking at American society specifically. All right, I digress. So, step 1, we view media repetitively. We look at all the ads again and again. Unless you have ad blocker. Ha ha ha. Okay, anyway. Step 2, our beliefs about society are influenced. So we see all these ads, and what we think about society are influenced by what we see in the ads. So number 3, norms and expectations are created and reinforced. So we've seen the ads, beliefs are created, and we apply those beliefs to society. And that's it. So basically, to summarize what we've just learned, the more media that we take in, the more we will apply what we've seen to society and expect society to look like that. And that's how media cultivation works. We're cultivating from the screen and we're applying it onto society. And this can have a positive effect if what we're seeing is, genuine progressive representation. But as I think you might be able to pick up where I'm headed, if it's stereotypical portrayals, then that's going to have a very negative impact on how we feel and what we think should be seen and reflected in society, specifically around representations of gender. So, with that in mind, let's dive into the scope of the impact, aka cyclical effect that this creates. I'm going to take this in tiny little chunks in order to make sure that we're all following. So, number 1, I'm also going to move temporarily my little camera. Oh, got to move it a little bit more. So, step 1, in creating the cyclical effect. When the images you see in advertisements shape your worldview towards stereotypical depictions of gender, it's like when you give a mouse a cookie, right? When you see the advertisements and they shape your worldview towards stereotypical depictions of gender, you're gonna want to continue to see your beliefs represented in media. And that creates a pressure for advertisements to continue to represent genders and stereotypical roles and behaviors, which in turn continues to reinforce your worldviews, and that's how the cycle is created. All right, I'm gonna go through it one more time, just to make sure we all understand. Images, we see them. Stereotypical depictions, we gain those beliefs. we want to see those beliefs back in our media again, because that's how we feel about society. This creates a pressure on the advertisers to continue making stereotypical advertisements. And then we see those advertisements and we gain stereotypical beliefs about society. So it's just an ongoing cycle. And that's how it's created. And that is a very negative, harmful cycle that traps our media in this really dark kind of place, especially when looking at gender and gender roles, hegemonic masculinity, sexism, and things like that. Very dark. That's what moves us to the irresponsibility of brands and the female gaze. Woo! So let's define the female gaze. So sorry for having to move this again. The female gaze, as described by this wonderful author from Taylor 2014, which will be in my reference page at the end. The female gaze is a completely different set of power dynamics. Basically, this influences how men, how women, how everyone, how people are filmed, how they're produced, how they're presented, how they're set up in camera angles, how they portray themselves on the screen. That's the female gaze. So typically what you'll see, men, they're emotionally desirable. They're not hairy like they are when it's the male gaze. They're not ripped like you would see them during the male gaze. They're more just like toned or even like not muscular. And they're very emotionally intelligent. They're emotionally desirable and they're emotionally intelligent, which are two very important aspects. Women have agency, and this is super important. They are leaders. They are, they are just respected. They're celebrated. They have agency. They are in control of the scene, of the set, of decisions. And the presence of this female gaze in advertising, it shifts those norms in society. And so if we can apply this to ads and if we can represent the female gaze in ads, I think you kind of see where I might be going. This could completely change how we cultivate our media and therefore how we view society. If we can shift away from some of those negative stereotypes to represent this sort of gaze, it would make a big difference. And we would maybe have a lot more freedom of expression, freedom of, agency, maybe some glass ceilings. It would be more okay to break. But yeah. So what do we do when we have all of these theories and we also have this wonderful empowerment practice of the female gaze that we can, apply to media? Well, we learn media literacy. And media literacy, let me just scoot back over. Defined media literacy is essentially the ability to decode media messages. So it kind of deconstructs cultivation theory, interrupts cultivation theory, if you will, because it's like, whoa, I recognize that this advertisement is trying to influence me, and I recognize the messages that this media is trying to produce in me. And so now I get to choose instead of being influenced. I get to choose whether or not I actually agree with those influences and with this, kind of subliminal, subtle messaging. And on the advertisers' side of things, they can take these influences that they've been making and produce media more carefully in response. They can say, we've seen these harmful stereotypes being produced. We've seen that people are not really vibing with these, and that these also may be having a very harmful impact on society. And we, as media literate people, don't think we should be producing this type of messaging. We are going to produce more careful media. in response. We're going to produce media that reflects the female gaze, for example. So that is essentially what media literacy is. This is the goal. This is the goal, and this is where we should be. Are we there? No. That's the point of this. That we're getting there. It's a process. So, how do all these theories work in action? How do we become media literate? How do we apply that into a real advertisement? It's time for the case studies. So, I wanted to start out with a positive example because I didn't want this whole thing to just be me dragging on brands. So I wanted to start with positive media literacy. And this is Nike, who collaborated with Dylan Mulvaney. She is a transgender social media influencer, and Nike got, a lot of pushback from this, but they said, you know what, we have seen sort of a shift in how society is viewing, transgender people one way or the other, but we have just seen a rise in transparency of transgender individuals. And we are going to take our stand and make carefully produced media and how we want society to view transgender people, which is positively. That is how they want to be media literate. And so, something that I love that they did is that they continued promoting Dylan throughout the pushback, throughout the response of the cyclical effect from cultivation theory. So basically, what happened was people were not really used to their norms and beliefs being challenged. They are stuck in this cycle very heavily. And Nike comes in and they kind of they push at that circle. And people are not very comfortable with that. They're like, hey, stop this. I'm perfectly okay with my stereotypical representations of like what a woman looks like, what a woman should be, and I don't want that to change. And so they get mad at Nike, they insult Dylan, they say all these rude things, but Nike, promoting positive media literacy, continues to say, no, this is what the future of our media will look like and will continue to look like. We want to see better representations of all kinds of women, not just the women you think should be on your screen. We want to continue to challenge and push the envelope to include all women. And so, yeah, they really, they held to their message and they doubled down. And this was a beautiful example of media literacy. Yeah, they said be kind, be inclusive. And that is flowers to Nike. All right. With that, let us get into a brand that maybe didn't do this so well. All right. This, of course, is Victoria's Secret, and we are going to watch an ad and apply cultivation theory. So, of course, Victoria's Secret, they sell lingerie, but in this ad particularly, they are selling perfume. Keep that in mind. I think you can already see from this little still that it's going to be something completely interesting and different. All right. Okay. So I think as you can see from that, there was just a lot more than selling perfume going on. That was supposed to be the message of the ad. But while they were selling perfume, what else were they selling? What else were they sending into the minds of the women who were the target audience of this ad? One, they were selling idealized bodies. Absolutely. You can just see even from this, even from as we pan forward a little bit, definitely all this couch scene right here. This is definitely selling an idealized body. Um, to the women who were just stopping in to pick up a perfume, all of a sudden, Victoria's Secret is saying this is like the app, this is like when you apply a perfume, this is who you're representing. And it's this like gorgeous, stunning, idealized version of a woman. This is what a woman is supposed to look like, right? And of course, she's feminine. She's curvy. She's got that curve, but she's skinny. And of course, there's floral themes all around her. So she's so feminine and, floral. She's sexy. She's in barely any clothing for a perfume. What is that really, implying about women? Because when you're wearing perfume, for the most part, in your day to day, you're like heading out the door going to work. But Miss Victoria's Secret here, she's saying that no, no, you are embodying sex when you're putting on perfume. And that is all women, all the time, any day, every day. Gotta smell good, gotta look good, gotta have this body. And lastly, these peonies that are just like continually, oh, my bad, continue. These peonies that are continually represented throughout the video um, really just represent like love, romance, beauty. I know a lot of times flowers kind of represent like that innocence, but um, in juxtaposition with this like scantily clad woman, it's like, oh, corruption, So really, this leaves a lot of messages to be cultivated from a lot of questionable imagery about beyond just selling a perfume bottle, about how women are maybe, being reduced to just their bodies. And of course, cultivation theory would say, like, this is what we're taking with us and applying to the rest of society, that women are just there for their bodies. Yikes. So now I have another case study, and I wanted to also apply another perfume ad company. Great. This is Valentino. And it's interesting because Valentino is actually an Italian company. However, this is advertised to American audiences. So it is very interesting to see the juxtaposition between Victoria's Secret, their advertising and their implications about women, and Valentino and their sort of same messaging, but it's, same product, completely different statement. So with that in mind, we're going to watch this once and then I'm going to break it down again. All right. So I love this ad. I can't lie. How do I get out? Free me. Um, I love this ad, and here's why. Let's start with where'd my little box go? Where'd my little transcript go? Hold on. Captions. Gotta get the captions back. Show captions. There we go. All right. So I love this ad because this ad, to me, demonstrates the female gaze exceptionally well. And let's start at 17 seconds. All right. She gets on this motorcycle in heels. She gets on this motorcycle in heels. And that to me demonstrates just like feminine power. It's not taking away her femininity, but at the same time, it is demonstrating her agency and power. She is controlling that bike. She is riding through the streets solo, alone. She's owning it. The second part is that she is looking down physically on the camera direction onto this man. I'll show you. All right, so you see she's on the car and she is going to look down at him. And that is always in direction a power stance. Whenever you have your person one looking down on person two, that's because person one has the power. That is just like a film directional style. And that is beautiful. That's how you know that she has the power here in this situation. See, this is what I'm talking about. She is person one, and she is looking down at person two. She is in control, and she has the power here. I'm so passionate about this ad. Look at this is such a beautiful shot, first of all. This ad is beautiful. This is so powerful. Like, this is the female gaze. She has agency here. He doesn't. He's following her. He's looking to her for control and for guidance. And that's perfect. Like she has all the respect from him. Anyway, wonderful. The next point that just really solidifies her power again is that she's pushing off of him to stand up, which again is that power dynamic. Person one is physically above person two. And I'll show that. All right, here we go. She just pushed off of him to stand up. Again, using person two to put yourself in a better position. She has all the power here. And as I've been saying, he looks to her for the next move here. So you're gonna see that in just a second. Here you go. You see his eyes here. He is just watching her move, and he is so at her every control and at her every whim. And then she's going to stand in between these statues, and they're all male statues. They're all kind of godlike, which once again just reaffirms her power and her dominance in this whole ad. And just like reaffirms her agency that she is so powerful. She's so like badass that she's in control in this ad. This ad is about her. And he is just so obsessed and like willing to do anything for her. That's kind of like the vibe. That's the vibe. It's so wonderful. Yeah. This still is stunning. She's standing in between these men and she just like takes control. She just perfectly fits in between these men and is ready to assert that power. It's a beautiful still. Anyway, last scene, she is again on the bike, which once again affirms her power here because she is on a dress in the bike. She's the one who's going to ride off. And who knows, but she is once again the agent and this entire production. I love it. Give it its flowers. It's wonderful. And it's wild how different the message here about that women are in, power, women don't have to sacrifice their femininity to do what they want. Women can be power leaders and still feminine, in place of like men. Wild that this ad is also for perfume and it doesn't have any of the same messages that we just saw in the Victoria's Secret ad. And I also just want to point out one more thing that this man is not ripped at all. He's rather more a romantic sort of set of features. He's got the not super square jaw, but it is kind of, and he's definitely not ripped, but he's very toned, which is nice. It's very, it sets that sort of female gaze that he's more intellectually attached to her rather than just like, whoa, I'll lift up this car for you. So yeah, wonderful example. Oh, so sorry. Next. My next case study is this Tide commercial. And this Tide commercial is going to show us a little bit of cultivation theory and just some messages that we can, of course, take away from watching this. So let's watch. Okay, so obviously there is a lot to be said about this little Tide commercial. Um, Mainly about men in society. And so, what does this advertisement say about men in society? Well, a lot. It says that men do not do domestic chores. They are okay with living in filth, and they only do those domestic chores when it is literally the last possible moment, when there is a huge pile of filth in their home, and that these masculine men are telling them, you need to do this. That's the only time. That's the only time when they will do it. That is unacceptable. It is saying in a way, it is producing the image kind of like those ads that are saying, you're not alone, it's okay. But in this case, it's saying to those other men that don't do their laundry, you're not alone, it's okay. In a completely unacceptable situation. And I get that the ad is, also trying to say, you can fix it with Tide. But at the same time, the way that this ad is normalizing the existence of this, the existence of men unwilling to do domestic chores, men just letting their filth pile up until until they feel shamed by some other stronger man is despicable. It's ridiculous. And, the messages that this takes away about, of course, well, I don't need to do anything until someone else sees it. I don't need to do anything until it's the worst possible pile that it could be. Specifically about men doing domestic chores is the issue here. So yeah, that's Tide. It was a quicker case study, but I think it got more to the point about men being unwilling to do domestic labor. And that this ad just kind of reinforces that. But being like, you know what? We know. We know you're not doing your laundry. And that's okay. Just wait until a strong masculine football player sees and yells at you. And then maybe you'll feel inspired enough to do that laundry. But if it's your wife telling you to do it, that's okay to let it keep piling up because she is small and feminine. Yeah, questionable. This ad is a case study about G, and it's about media literacy. And this is about media literacy for us, the viewers. And so we're going to look at it before and after we apply a media literacy. Oh, sorry about that. Media literacy lens. All right, let's watch it. All right, so what does this mean? What did we just watch? Let's look. So before our media literacy, it's this beautiful story of this man getting home safely to his family and his car being there for him and looking out for him so he can get home so safely. Here you see on the right, he's saying hello to his children. He got home safe because of this Jeep. And on the left, you can see he avoided this creature. This, I don't know, it's scary. But he avoided it because his car drove him safely home. It's almost emotional. It's like a Hallmark movie in a car ad. Sorry for the sarcasm. That was a lot. But it is a beautiful ad when you don't critically look at it and it ruins it for you. After media literacy, of course, um, it gets a little rougher because we see here that the man works and the women and kids, of course, are at home, is selling you a car, but it is also selling this idea of the family man with, two kids and a house and a wife at home. I'm shocked they didn't have a dog. But of course he's the working man. He's, got that is a white collar. He's a white collar man. He was gonna take his private jet home, but I guess he has to take the car instead. And she's at home doing the domestic chores and the emotional labor. She's keeping the kids happy for him. So not only is it selling you a car, but it's also selling you that American dream. Got that white picket fence and wife and kids waiting for you back at home. You just got to get there safe and sound in your Jeep. So of course we are here decoding these little messages in this media and really depicting if this could have been made more thoughtfully. And honestly, yes, it could have been. They could have really sold this car. They didn't have to take away the family aspect of the car, but they could have changed around those family dynamics of the car. What if they both worked? What if she worked? What if he just got fired? What if, and his car was the only thing that lifted him back up? They didn't have to include the stereotypical American dream, but they did. And the implications of that, I don't just want the car now, but I want this fantasy of this like stereotypical role of my wife at home and me being the breadwinner. That is where these ads get rocky and get messy and get not okay. And that's where advertisers really need to start thinking more critically about what they're producing. You know, this is setting women back. This is setting the men back. This is setting the American dream. The American dream is dead. That's okay. But this is just setting everyone back by continuing to produce these ads where this is the goal, where the perfect family and the perfect wife and a perfect husband are the goal. So, my conclusion. Amen. Oh, we've gone too far. And my future research and final thoughts. Future research, of course. I think I need to include more non-binary bodies in advertisement. I think just in general, research and also representation of non-binary bodies in advertisement is lacking. I think it's interesting that non-binary bodies in advertisement I really have only seen online. I have yet to truly see in television ads, which is an issue. And I would love to see that on the big screen going forward. So that is my one first thought. And my second thought for future research, of course, is to get advertisers involved in this, make it interdisciplinary, show them COMM literature, show them media literacy, and show them why it matters, show them how things like the American dream and women's bodies aren't just ideas to toss in there because you're bored or toss in there because they're easy and they've been done time and time before. That's because it's a cycle and it's an overplayed cycle and we're tired of it. um, so yeah, show advertising majors and get them involved so that they can make these changes happen. So it's not just us having to educate ourselves, but they can also do some work and help ease that up for us. And so my final thoughts are that advertising really just is this huge, powerful player in our world. And it really can play a huge part in controlling, for lack of a better word, or definitely influencing our culture. And of course, we discussed that it influences our norms. So in a way, it also influences our culture and what we think is okay, what we think is normal, what we think is cool, what we think is not so cool. I mean, and this has been going on for a long time. Remember when everyone thought smoking was cool? That was because advertisements showed that your doctor smokes. Yeah, interesting. Not that way anymore. So advertising has always been this way. And so breaking the cycle might not really be as attainable because when you break the cycle, it really just adjusts media towards a new cycle, new norms. Now smoking isn't cool, and now all the ads say smoking isn't cool. So it really just adjusts towards a new cycle, new norms. And I really don't think we can ever stop being influenced by media in at least some little way. But I think by informing ourselves into how the media influences us, we can at least begin to have a say in what we'd like to see normalized. And I think that's the big difference, especially with gender. I would like to see non-binary bodies in advertisement. And I think Nike is, one of those brands that is paying attention to that. And I think there are some other brands online that are paying attention to it, but I would love to see those brands put that into larger scopes, such as like primetime TV and more than just online advertisement, if that makes sense. So yeah, that is my final thoughts. And this is my reference page. Sorry that you can't see the word references, but that's okay. Here are all the references I used, a lot of COMM scholars, some articles, and of course my little ads for my case studies. And as a little thank you. Thank you to SlidesGo for this beautiful template. All right, I'm gonna stop my share and say thank you all for watching. Oh no, I don't know what happened. Okay, we're good. Thank you all for watching. And I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something. But yeah, that was my little presentation for my capstone. Hello. Thank you.